The Island of the Truth. The anxiety was clearly reflected in the guard's eyes while he was heading to the cell of the prince, where the young man was lying on his sealed clothes, all covered in blood, the blood of his father, the blood of the dead king.
It's time.
The guard mumbled to the young prince, who looked at him in pure terror when he heard his voice. Not such a weird thing to do, considering that anyone in his place would be terrified to face the trial that he was about to face. Prince Marcus got up in silence and tried in vain to clean himself a little, brushing his dark hair with his fingers as the guard opened the door of the cell. When the prince got out of his cell, he and the guard walked to their destiny, surrounded by fear and worry, while the servants of the hall muttered at their step, all pointing with surprise to the blood in Marcus' clothes until they arrived at the palace court.
Come in.
The guard behind the doors of the court shouted, and the servants opened the door for Prince Marcus and the guard to enter the room. The prince was immediately intimidated by the silent judgment of the people in the room, all important nobles wanting to see the punishment of the prince, people of the royal court waiting to declare him guilty, or even the old judge expecting to declare his punishment, all comfortable in his big and tall table.
I didn't do it. It wasn't me.
The prince was saying with weak voice, trembling with every step he took, and instantly everyone around had to debate between the pity of seeing his prince like that, the horror when the smell of the blood covered the room, and the anger of thinking that the prince they adored so much killed his own father, the king that people also adored so much, the poor King Caleb. It was all just impossible to digest, but the trial had to be done as soon as possible so that King Caleb could have a peaceful rest, knowing that the responsible for his death would pay for it. Abelard, the judge, was the only one that didn't have a single reaction to the events of that terrible day. Even if he was one of the closest friends of King Caleb, and even if he spent years watching Prince Marcus grow and couldn't even notice once what he was capable of doing, Abelard had to stay calm and objective if he wanted to do his work well and get some justice for the horrible death of his old friend.
You already spent one night in a cell, Your Majesty. Are you ready to confess now?
I didn't do it. Why can't you believe me? How on earth could I kill my father? I loved him. I love him still even now that he is... I'm innocent, I swear.
The judge stared at him in silence even when he should have interrupted Marcus' words. He was still the prince after all, and he was still insisting on his innocence, so Abelard had to make some exceptions for Prince Marcus, like letting him talk more than necessary, but the judge wasn't exactly a patient man.
Your Majesty, all the proof points you are guilty. If you only confess, we can stop wasting time and maybe avoid the death sentence.
But I'm not guilty. Even if I cannot prove it to you, you have to believe me, sir. You know very well I could never... Abelard.
We need proofs. We can just believe you're under the circumstances, Your Majesty.
I'll get you proof.
We didn't find any. I don't think that's possible, Prince Marcus.
I'll go to the Island of the Truth.
Everyone in the room went quiet, some surprised and some about to laugh about the suggestion of the prince, but Marcus seemed pretty serious about it. The judge looked at him, trying to figure out if he was joking.
Your Majesty, that island is just a myth.
No, a boat of the kingdom found it years ago. They told my father and he didn't believe it either. He thought that the stories of the island where you can lie were just that, stories, but they insist. My father himself went to the island with the sailors and couldn't tell a single lie while his feet were standing off the island of the truth. So he decided to keep it a secret because that kind of magic could be safe for people. Even if the sailors that had talked, no one would have believed them because it's just a myth. But I can break them. I know their names. I know where the map to the island map that my father kept is. Just let me go. Let me prove my innocence.
The judge, the guards, the nobles, and the royal court all looked at him in surprise while they heard him talk. Could it be true? The island where you can't tell lies could be a real place, and King Caleb knew it? It seemed impossible. It could easily just be a desperate trick from Marcus to escape his inevitable doom. All the facts proved him guilty, but there he was, insisting on a kid's story of a fantastic place that couldn't be real. But he said he had proofs about it, so they had to listen because he was still the prince, the only one left of the royal family after his father's death, so they brought the map and the sailors to confirm the story, and being the only hope left for the prince, the Judge Abelard decided a trip to the Island of the Truth. Then Prince Marcus, the rightful heir to Caleb's throne and the prime suspect in the murder of his own father, the king, boarded the ship followed by dozens of other guards, including the old Judge Abelard. They sailed never to be seen again, straight into the unknown in search of the Island of the Truth. Nobody never knew if it was the plan of the cunning prince to escape his punishment, or if it was the fearsome sea. What is known is that neither Prince Marcus nor the ship or the soldiers were never seen again, and that the fate of the Island of the Truth will remain just a story for another long time, such as the mystery of the murder of the king in hands of his own son. The end. Hope you enjoyed it.